So Rasul Douglas, the former Green Bay Packers player, the former Panthers player, the former Cardinals practice squad player, the former Philadelphia Eagle, been on a lot of teams now, but I think he could fit really well with this Buffalo Bills team. I think he's a really talented player. It was funny, actually. I made the immediate video breaking it down, and my expectation for the compensation was a second-round pick. That was my guess. They didn't even get close to that. I mean, really, they didn't even get a pick at all. They moved up for the Green Bay Packers, they moved up from early into 5th round to late into 3rd round. They're probably only going to jump like 40 spots or so in that section. Not a ton of value for a really valuable player, in my opinion. If you look at Douglas's Pro Football Focus grades year in and year out, there's no denying that 2021 we saw a massive jump. This was his first year in Green Bay. He was a big part of that team that kind of, was really good, right? They were the best record in football in 2021, in large part due to that defense. Obviously, Rodgers winning MVP helped as well, but, he was a big part of it. 74 grade, and he's been over 70 grade-wise the past 3 seasons. And for a corner, which is a notoriously fluky position, having a guy who can be consistent is really not easy to find. Let's talk about what he can do well, and let's just talk about his play style in general, because I think that's an important thing to note with Douglas, is almost more so than his talent, is just how he sees the game of football, which I do think Buffalo likes, where it's going to be, the way this play works is it is a zone coverage play. You see where Douglas is. He's the zone in white. That's where he's going to be covering. So, that to differentiate what he's doing. And there's a route that's going to be underneath, right? Seems like it could be a dangerous route, right? Because watch how when this play begins, you see that Douglas, he's backing off a little bit. This feels like a situation where things could go wrong, right? You throw underneath, you can make something happen. That's what it feels like. There's a potential here, and maybe Cousins is going to notice this. Maybe he's going to throw it underneath, and maybe you're going to be able to pick up some yards here if you're Minnesota. Douglas has his hips turned towards the middle of the field. You might be looking at this saying, oh, wait, is he just one of those corners who always makes sure he doesn't get beat deep? In a sense, yes, but also you have to understand the situation. This is quarters coverage, meaning there are several defenders who are underneath. Again, worth mentioning, Cousins is looking at this route. Cousins notices this situation. Cousins is going to choose to not make this throw. Watch, Cousins just instead throws it somewhere else, which did not work out. But for Douglas, a big part of what he was doing on that play is understanding the situation. Could maybe Cousins have thrown towards the sideline and gotten the completion? Yes, but it would have been a tough throw, and there was help underneath. And I think that's what Douglas really does that works in this Green Bay offense and should work in the Buffalo offense, is understanding the talent around him and the situation around him. Now, it'll take some time in Buffalo, right? Because, the linebackers move in Buffalo differently than they move in Green Bay, right? There's going to be some growing pains. That's just what you naturally expect when you trade for a corner, maybe part of what got his value a little bit lower. And can this philosophy backfire? Absolutely. This play, it's going to be an example of it, where, again, worth mentioning, in these situations, this is a hard route to cover anyways for a corner, right? You can't get beat deep, so when it's a route going towards the sideline, there's almost always going to be an opening there. Well, watch how, when Cousins takes a snap and runs a play action, you see that, Douglas is definitely making sure he doesn't get beat deep, has his hips turned towards the middle of the field, and maybe a bit too much so in this situation. As you see, Cousins is going to wait. Now you see Douglas is getting turned back around, and he does have great athleticism to close here, but he's given up a bit too much space, and I would say this is a negative play from Douglas. It's not to say that he's always doing this. This is probably the one criticism I have of his game is he does sometimes play a little bit too cautious. Again, it is worth mentioning, oftentimes you expect there to be kind of linebacker help underneath. Here, there is not, due to kind of a fake that was going on. So that is also a part of it. That is worth mentioning. But as you see, Cousins is able to make this throw. They're able to get that completion right there. So, again, I'm not saying it's a bad play. I'm just saying this is kind of who he is as a player. Something like this is another example. One of the things he's done a really good job of in Green Bay is being a playmaker. And one of the ways you can do that is keeping your eyes on the football. A play like this, it's going to be a deep shot on the outside. Watch as when Cousins takes the snap, he runs a play action. And at this point, you see that, okay, what do you do in this spot? Well, for Douglas, what he does is he looks at what Cousins is doing. He's watching Cousins. He's paying attention to where this could be going. And you see that as the receiver runs behind him, then he goes back, but still keeps back and looking at Cousins. Now, again, Is this a concern? Well, in a sense, yes. I mean, if Cousins threw a deep shot, I do think Douglas would have been in a little bit of trouble, but Douglas was banking on that not happening. He's keeping his eyes turned towards Cousins, and if the ball came in his direction, he was going to be able to potentially make a play on the football. If that wasn't a deep shot, he 100%, the only way that was going to be open is if it was a go route. And even with it being a go route, the fact that he's playing the receiver or playing the quarterback so much, he's going to know it and he's going to be able to adjust. And like I said, he does have really good closing speed. He does have really good ball skills. So he doesn't have to, in this situation, being a step and a half behind the receiver this far down the field, he can overcome that. He can. Once again, Cousins' throw is going to go, actually doesn't even throw it. He scrambles, elite rusher Kirk Cousins there. But that's also just a point of, that's part of what Douglas can do, is he can do that stuff. And to be honest, the ball rarely comes his way. Usually the ball's going somewhere else for Green Bay. It's not going in Rasul Douglas's direction. And also something like this, going to be a one-on-one matchup covering TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson, a tight end, which obviously has its benefits of tight ends tend to not be as fast as corners, but also has its downsides of they tend to be bigger and therefore more physical. Watch as when Cousins takes the snap, you're going to see that it looks like Hawkinson is trying to create some contact, which makes sense. Going up against a corner, see what you can do. But again, this just is not getting much going. Ball goes, once again, in a different direction and was complete that time. But this is the stuff that Rasul Douglas can do. He's versatile. He understands what the Packers want him to do. And again, you can have debates as to whether or not that's the correct strategy in zone coverage and stuff. But that's what Green Bay wants him to do. And I'm assuming it's what Buffalo is going to want him to do. That's why they went out and added him to their roster, especially with some of the injuries that they have. To me, again, a lot of people don't value the cornerback position as highly as I do. I think it's really important. Yes, there isn't as many snaps in a game that it matters compared to like a defensive lineman. But when it does matter, it matters so much more. And getting burned deep can be huge, and not getting burned deep is a real benefit. And getting some turnovers can be a real benefit. He has gotten turnovers in his Green Bay career. Been really good for them. And I think, again, Buffalo, a lot of what they do is similar to what Green Bay does. So I do think that it's kind of a match made in heaven a little bit. And it's also worth mentioning, Douglas is, he just turned 28 years old and is under contract for another year. This isn't a pure rental situation. So for moving back, what I expect to be around 50 spots in a situation where, they might go from picking now instead of 90th to picking 140th in next year's draft to get an actual player right now who's going to help you for multiple years. That's an easily worth it trade, in my opinion. And again, for Green Bay, I get it. When you have veteran players, it often is a good move to get rid of them, go out, get young players, but it just feels like with this little amount of value, kind of doesn't really feel worth it, in my opinion, for the Packers. It would have been nice for them if they could have found more, some more talent, more draft picks, I guess I should say. At least don't give up a pick back. Again, it really didn't help you out that much, in my opinion, for the Packers, but love the trade from the Bills' perspective. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.